This BBC podcast is supported by ads outside the UK.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
You're about to listen to a brand new episode of Curious Cases. Shows are going to be released weekly, wherever you get your podcasts. But if you're in the UK, you can listen to the latest episodes first on BBC Sounds. I'm Hannah Fry.
And I'm Dara O'Brien.
And this is Curious Cases.
The show where we take your quirkiest questions,
your crunchiest conundrums,
and then we solve them.
With the power of science.
I mean, do we always solve them?
I mean, the hit rate's pretty low.
But it is with science.
It is with science.
Here's an interesting thing I did recently. I did something with the Natural History Museum, just in a kind of a standing in the room while they're doing proper work, like whatever, for a new exhibit that's running at the moment about space, right? Is there life in outer space? But as part of it, I was nudging them, and they went for this, that they'd have a speculative bit at the end. They were thinking of doing this, where they would basically say, well, what might life be like under different gravitational conditions and different stars?
Planets.
Exactly, on different planets, what it might look like. So they kind of went, okay, what could be fairly safe to make a guess that an alien life might look like, right? Okay, because it's not going to be Chewbacca, right?
You can't say that for sure.
I'm fairly sure I can say it's not all going to be what looks like a person in a suit. And so they have this kind of like, nicely presented kind of a vague sense of what these things might look like. And a lot of them look like paramecium. A lot of them look like, very, very evolutionary, very kind of simple cell of life. Like, and you kind of go, okay, grand, that makes sense. But the only really recognisable thing was a crab.
A crab?
A crab. They said, yeah, there'll be a crab. No, there'll definitely be a crab.
The most evolutionary stable possible
it seems
form.
to be like a very evolutionary friendly thing, a crab. You're low.
You're low.
You're hard.
You can walk sideways.
Oh, look, no one's expecting that. That's the weird thing about it. No one is expecting, oi, where'd you go? I mean, because I'm looking at you with my crab eyes. I'm staring your right. No, I'm now gone left.
Yeah.
Where's
also, the crab eyes can move around. I mean, independent of the crab legs.
I mean, we don't acclaim them enough. They're amazing.
I think you're absolutely right.
Which is why there's an excellent question about crabs.
Certainly is.
Hello, we are Kirsten and Emily from Cornwall, and we're interested in the weird and wacky nature of evolution.
We read about carcinisation, which is when non-crab organisms evolved to have crab-like bodies. Why have so many different species evolved into crabs?
Does this mean that crabs are the ideal life form? And if so, could humans eventually become crabs?
Okay, how cool do they sound? And also, I really like the fact that there is implicit in this a sense of these two young women going, will this happen in our lifetime? I mean, look,
what year are we talking?
We're young and we're staring at our old future ahead of us, but is part of it going to be a click, 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 click? Yeah, are we going to be castanetting with our claws,
2060.
Yeah.
Everything's crabs. There's a meme about this. I don't know if you've seen this.
No, I haven't.
All the people on the internet have been making jokes about how eventually everything's going to evolve into crabs. There was Monterey Bay Aquarium, for example, one of the most prestigious and respected marine institutions on the planet.
Yep.
They just posted a picture of some humans dancing and a crab in a corner with a party hat looking on at them saying, I was like them once. This is, one of the most respected institutions in the entire world, just posting a crab content meme with zero context.
So we're basically saying this is a thing.
I mean, look, we've got questions aplenty
Yes.
that we need to answer. And that is why we have got three brilliant guests who are going to help us get to the bottom of things. We have Matthew Wills, who is a professor of evolutionary paleobiology at Bath University. Joanna Wolfe, who is an evolutionary biologist affiliated with Harvard and UC Santa Barbara. And Ned Sussat-Williams, who is director of the Crab Museum in Margate.
Ned, everything evolving into crabs, is this something people are aware of, do you think? Do they ask you about it in the museum?
Yes. Yeah, people ask us about it probably every day. I've never quite been able to give a fully satisfactory answer to either myself or them. I think the thing is, carcinisation, which is the thing that we're talking about, which is about when animals evolve into a crab-like form, that was memed quite heavily. It's not necessarily more of a thing than other convergent evolutions. It's just sort of won the PR game.
It's a pretty good one, to be fair.
Look, crabs rule. Why wouldn't you want to evolve into a crab-like form?
I mean, yes, there are various forms of convergent evolution, which is basically where evolutionary forces on different species will come with the same results. So they can't claim it's part of a shared heritage, but just the environment has created. Our eyes and octopus eyes, for example, are a very good example of that, like whatever.
But the idea that you get eyes, even though you don't have shared ancestors.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, dolphins and sharks, one is a mammal, one is a fish, and yet they have share fins and flippers and a similar kind of skin, like whatever. So it happens a lot. But as you say, there aren't memes about that.
Let's be real, and I'm going to go on record and just say that crabs are weird and funny looking. And that is...
Hot take from the crab.
I know, no. I mean, it's a fact. We got it on one of our boards, in fact. But crabs are weird and funny looking, and yet they are part of the world in which we inhabit. And they are intriguing because of their weirdness, their spikiness, and their funny lookingness. So why wouldn't you hinge a whole discourse about evolution on a crab?
Joe, this is something you study extensively. You have a brilliantly titled paper, How to Become a Crab, for example. Did you ever think your study would get this much attention?
I didn't. And I probably wouldn't have written it the way that I did had I known. I don't know if I would have called it How to Become a Crab, because people can't become a crab.
Well, what is it that's so special about the evolution of crabs that has spawned all this?
Well, I think, like Ned said, it's actually just one example of many, many examples of convergent evolution across the tree of life. We should probably define what crabs are, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay, Grant. I mean, I have a strong visual image, but I put it in a proper context.
There's two groups that are each other's closest relatives. They're the true crabs and the false crabs.
Ooh.
That's not a value judgment. It's just basically...
Sounds a bit judgy, I'll be honest. It does sound a bit.
It's based on the taxonomy, which was named first. So true crabs are also called Brachyura, and they represent about 8,000 living species. And those include groups like fiddler crabs, spider crabs, shore crabs. Most of the things that you think look like a crab are within the true crabs. Then there's the false crabs, which the Latin name of that is Anomura. The false crabs are the closest relative of the true crabs. So they're not like human level distant, but the common ancestor of those two is still almost 300 million years ago, which is older than the dinosaurs, right? So it is a long time ago that these two groups split. And yet within the false crabs, these groups include things, and I'm sorry that the English names are so misleading. They include things like squat lobsters, which aren't a lobster. They have hermit crabs, which aren't really a crab. They have porcelain crabs, king crabs. None of this is a true crab.
Hermit crabs are like my favourite crab, and they're not a crab.
I know, right?
A false crab.
They're a false crab.
But still a crab, no.
Exactly.
Is this subject to debate? What is a crab?
Yes.
Really?
Hugely. I don't think that we can neatly put things in boxes necessarily. I mean, I do agree with you that there are definitely two very distinct families, but I feel that there is some overlap.
I'm just taking it personally that this includes hermit crabs, who are very much the collectible crabs on beautiful beaches that you go, look, kids, look at this crab. And to know that I have lied all those times, I said, look at this. I mean, if they're not crabs, what are they? Sorry, they're still crustaceans, but they're not.
Well, they're like a false crab, if you will. So they're definitely still crustaceans. They're decapod crustaceans. So that also includes a little further away lobsters and shrimps. The things that are officially lobsters and shrimp. Again, this is taxonomy. So this isn't necessarily describing what their morphology looks like. What they look like, as Ned said, can vary quite a lot. And that, I think, is kind of the crux of what is interesting in carcinisation, because oftentimes there are things that you think look like a crab, but they're not closely related to other things. They don't have a shared ancestor with other things that also look like a crab. So the hermit crabs, though, I at least think of them as not looking like a crab, because what we think a crab morphotype is basically this sort of rounded, flattened carapace, and also having the abdomen folded under the body. Now, in a hermit crab, usually you don't see the abdomen because it's in the shell, right? but they have a soft abdomen and it curls inside of the shell. If you took one out, it wouldn't just like be held completely under the body. I guess the equivalent of what it would be like is if you were permanently doing a stomach crunch forever. That's basically like what a crab's life is like.
Okay, that's certainly vivid. That's an image in my head because I just think claws and shell.
Well, yeah, but a lobster has claws and shell.
Yeah.
Shrimp has claws.
Well, actually, Matt, you've got a plastic lobster here in the studio with you.
Here's a lobster. It's also got a claws and a shell, but it's got its abdomen stuck out behind the body. And this is great because animals with this kind of body plan can move around in 3 different ways. They can walk around on their walking legs. They can swim. They've got little oar-like limbs on the abdomen, and they can sort of beat these in a rhythm, and they glide along quite elegantly. But the killer thing they have is the ability to contract all of the muscles in the abdomen, and the back end of a lobster and the back end of a shrimp is splayed out into this lovely tail fan. And when they do this, they shoot off backwards at high speed. Now, if you become a crab, if you bend the abdomen back down underneath this front part of the body, the cephalothorax as it's called, then it makes you more compact and you can armour yourself. But what you sacrifice is this, it's called the charadoid escape reaction, if you want. It's this ability to snap yourself and to shoot off backwards at a vast rate of knots.
So you lose the... I can only think of the yummy lobster tail.
You do. It is yummy. It's fabulous. Yes.
But you lose that. That is what is being folded underneath?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, fine.
That's right.
So, Matt, what does it mean to say, when we say that crabs have evolved 5 times?
Biologists talk about what they call clades or monophyletic groups. And all that means is if you had a model of the tree of life in front of you, kind of made out of plastic, a monophyletic group is one that you can remove just by making one cut. So you get the ancestor and you get all of the descendants within that group. Now, there are other groups that turn out to be what's called polyphyletic. And that's to say, if you want to cut them out of the tree, you have to make several snips in several places. But what that, of course, means is they've evolved independently more than once, 2, 3, however many times. And what, if you see one on the desk in front of you, you're going to call, well, that looks like a crab. If you plot that across the tree, you've got several instances of those evolving from things which are actually pretty crab-like. So you have to have all the sort of building blocks. You have to already have in order to make that. So that the story has sort of become everything's evolving into crabs. And that doesn't mean that humans are evolving into crabs or trees are evolving into crabs. You have to be in an environment where that's an advantage to you. And you also have to have, you also living around clefts in rocks and so forth, such that hunkering down, becoming crab-like is an advantage.
So the meme would be less popular but more accurate. It was like, many crab-like things are evolving into
crabs.
Things that resemble crabs.
Yes. It doesn't have the same ring.
No, it doesn't. So we're not going to have one massive clamping arm like a fiddler crab.
Give it 560 million more years and let's see. I mean, crabs have maintained their shape as well in general. So like, we've got a Carcinisation, a shore crab at the museum that we show kids and they wave around and drop all the time. And that's like a modern day crab and it looks like a crab. But then we've also got a 90 million year old fossil of a crab, which looks still like a crab. So that's 90 million years. That's not a particularly long time. But then within 50 million years, you've got dog animals going and becoming whales. So evolution can happen really, really quickly. But despite all that, there are some animals that have been like, I am a crab and I'm going to stay as a crab because what I've got going on is clearly working.
That kind of gets to the point, though, actually, that these independent evolutions of this body plan didn't all happen at the same time. Mm-hmm. So in the true crabs, they were, actually probably the second oldest. Porcelain crabs, their fossil record suggests that they are older, even though they're not in the true crabs. So potentially those were actually the first. I know, it's so ridiculous.
I'm sorry. So now we've got pre-crabs along with the true crabs and the false crabs.
And post-crabs. And post-crabs. Like on the table here in front of me, I've got a specimen of Renina. And this was more crab-like. So we were talking about, when we were looking at the lobster, about the abdomen being splayed out the back. Now, at one point in the fossil record, Renina, the frog crab, had its abdomen tucked more under. And now it's evolving its abdomen to being tucked out. So this is a kind of example of decarcinisation. So we're...
Although I
Yeah,
would
carry on.
definitely add that it wasn't within that species, right?
Right,
This
okay.
happened over millions of years, so it was actually...
Yes, absolutely.
To describe
is-
this for the listeners, I mean, it's sort of like a lobster had a child with an armadillo, you know, and you know what I mean. This oh no, that side's very very scorpion.
Yeah, that's his bum hole right there at the bottom.
Delightful. It's quite beautiful in a weird way, but it's sort of halfway between a crab and a lobster.
Yeah. There's less eating in that one.
There is a lot less eating. There's a lot less eating.
Actually, I think people eat that species.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Oh, people will eat a lot of things. People would really be amazed.
Don't make
But people
judgments
will
based
eat
on
like
that.
whatever. Yeah, so it's a messier situation, but the fact remains something about this shape, this structure, is very good for this environment. That the environment they're in.
Well, crabs live in a lot of different environments, though. They live in every ocean, pretty much. They also live at every depth. So some species that are crab-like are down in hydrothermal vents, thousands of meters below the surface. Crab-like and non-crab-like live at the shore. And even on land, some of them even go up trees. So what is this environment, right? What environment is it that they're adapted to? And I honestly do not know the answer.
Here's the question though, Matt. So if things evolve into crabs and then stay as crabs, and lots of environments favour the crab shape, in the limit, will everything become crabs? I want some truth to this meme somewhere. If you gave infinite time.
No.
All right, damn it.
Agreed.
Was there a point where we didn't really understand convergent evolution and thought that this type of crab was actually directly descended from this type of crab? Did we get it wrong initially?
So before people had molecules they could sequence and look at, and Joe's pushed the bounds of this. What you had to do is you had to do basically comparative anatomy. You had to look at your animals under a microscope. You had to code their characteristics, and you had to try to produce a phylogenetic tree using that sort of information. I think the phylogeny of animurans and brachyrans was, at least in terms of the two major groups, I think that was fairly solid from morphology. But there are other examples where that's not been the case, and perhaps the best known one is the tree of mammal.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
So it used to be thought, go back about 20 years, 25 years ago, we kind of thought we knew how the major groups of mammals were related. And then a bombshell dropped because people started doing phylogenomic analyses based on lots and lots of genes, and they found that the whole tree of mammals completely changed. So it turns out, for example, that we had a group called ungulates, so things that had hooves, cows and horses and so on. It turns out that horses are more closely related to bats. It turns out this is absolutely true. Elephants and Sirenians and
I'm sorry, Sirenians. I'm going to have
these are manatees and
great.
so on. So,
That's great. Yeah.
These are animals that are so different in their ecology, in their how they look, their morphology, their anatomy, their size, everything about them. There's absolutely no way that you would unite them into a group unless you knew about their genomics.
The minute we started doing DNA testing, we just found that there were a lot more cousins in the world, a lot more related animals than we'd previously thought.
Well, at least the natural groups, the clades, turn out to be things which the comparative anatomists just couldn't see. And this wasn't because they were being slapdash. That this is really painstaking comparative work going on for decades and decades.
Well, it's very similar to what happened with the human genetics, really, isn't it? There's a lot more cousins all over the place than
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we all
thought there
found
might
family
be.
links we weren't expecting.
Well, I think
Bats and horses is quite a stretch, though, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I mean, if you've been raised by a bat and you find out you're actually a horse, that would be a difficult conversation for any family.
But this is where the extent of convergence becomes really apparent, is when you start looking at these molecular trees. Those throw up so many examples that we kind of didn't see before. So moles, for example. So there are 5 groups of moles that look remarkably similar. And there's a group that's evolved out of the shrews. There's a group that's actually more closely related to the elephants. There's a marsupial group of moles. Again, like a crab, if I put one on the desk in front of you now, you'd say, well, it's a mole. It behaves in the same way. It does the same sort of thing ecologically. But it's arrived at that endpoint convergently.
So tell us about crabs then. So I mean, in terms of people misunderstanding the path they took through evolution to get here, was there confusion in the past?
Look, to be honest, I am here on this radio show as a little bit of a shrimposter, right? I suffer eternal shrimposter syndrome, right? We're not scientists at the Crab Museum. We are just a couple of likely lads who love crabs, right? And we've come to it from the outsides. But for me, what makes a crab is if it's giving crab. We have the mole on a table. It looks like a mole. It's a mole. Like a crab is a made up word. Like we have horseshoe crabs. They are not crabs. Neither are they horses or shoes. But we still recognise them for the wonderful beings that they are.
Ned, let me put the question in a slightly different way. Why are crabs cool?
Right. Okay. Well, have you seen them? They're much smarter than we assume they are. For example, they wear hats. Some crabs will live inside the bums of sea urchins. Other crabs will wear jellyfish on their heads upside down, like as kind of hats. Crabs are underestimated. They're everywhere. They are a hugely important part of the world around us. Like, take, for example, we mentioned mangroves and sort of tropical environments earlier. Like, the way mangroves are is that it's like a sludgy, anoxic environment. There's no oxygen in the mud of a mangrove, and you need to have the crabs to dig their burrows to aerate the roots. Without crabs, mangroves choke and mangroves die. So crabs are ecosystem engineers. They're also just all around us, and they have been for all of our history. We've been talking about crabs from as long as we can, like, scribble down things. They're part of our lives, and I think that we have forgotten how close they are to us and ended up pigeonholing them into a kind of leisure activity for bored kids.
Okay. Joe, by the way, when Ned started talking about how cool they were, you, and I could see this on the screen, started doing the crab claw thing as an indication of what you were quite eager to go in on that, like whatever.
I just tend to do that on crab zooms because I think it's funny.
But it's still it's a fairly useful tool to have to be able to grip things.
Yeah. We think it's related to what they eat. And also in some cases, think about fiddler crabs, right? In the males, they have one very enlarged claw. And they use those for sexual displays and sometimes even to battle one another. So there are a lot of different functions that they may have. So those shapes are related often to the function.
I'm a big fan of fiddler crabs as well. They're my second favourite
Are they?
crabs after hermit crabs.
Do you know what I'm noticing though?
Fiddlers are great.
Yeah, they're cool crabs. Yeah.
All of these crabs, they're all very similar sizes. I mean, could you have a crab the size of a Labrador, for example, Joe?
You can. So there's 2 ends of the largest crabs. So the largest in terms of like leg span is the Japanese giant spider crab. And the name being giant, that's a pretty good indicator. And it can be like bigger than my arm span. I mean, I'm not that tall, but...
It's the length of a 1997 Nissan Micra.
There you go.
Okay.
New SI unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one way. And then the other way, the heaviest, and actually the heaviest arthropod ever known is alive with us now. And it's the coconut crab, which is not truly a crab. It's a hermit crab. It's funny with coconut crabs because people have talked about them as always being scary because they're on land with us and they're big. Last year, I was in Okinawa. I had the opportunity to meet and basically play with a coconut crab, and I found out they're really slow. They can crush a coconut but you can move away from them so easily. So there's nothing to be afraid of. They're actually pretty cool.
Dara, can I show you a picture of this coconut crab?
Please do.
And then, I'll be honest with you, that looks like something out of a film.
And not a happy film. Like it's somebody's living nightmare. But that's pretty substantial, isn't it?
No,
That's a
they're
pretty
your friend.
substantial.
They're your friend. They're not your friend. You can't
They
establish.
are. It was crawling in my lap like a cat. I don't know what to tell you.
Matt, top crab characteristics that you envy?
Lots of different appendages doing different jobs, and that's the secret to the success of many groups of arthropods. They've managed to subdivide and subfunctionalize their limbs. Even the pincers, they have a slightly different function for either side of the body. So they tend to have a crushing claw and a cutting claw. And if you look at many species of crabs, it's about 50-50 right to left. And it depends how they start to use the claw. And it's self-reinforcing. If they use one claw a bit more, that becomes the crusher. And the one that they use less becomes the slicer. And they're programmed to become asymmetrical.
So you get left and right-handed crabs?
Yeah.
I think one of the characteristics, which I think you've all adopted, which is interesting, is that while asking you about the crabs, you've not been defensive, not been hard-shelled about them in any way, but you have evaded a lot of the questions you've asked. So your sideways movement has been excellent. Throughout this entire discussion, we've asked you one question, and you quickly shifted to left or right and answered a different question. That's very, very impressive. I would have thought that would have been... That looks awkward and looks unusual, sideways movement. Is there... What's going on there?
Maybe it's surprising. Maybe it's the element of surprise. Not that, you'd have thought that maybe sort of predatory fish might have worked it out by now. But
well, they've had 90 million years.
Yeah. But slow learners are fish.
What I can say that's good about sideways walking, regardless of what your body shape may be, you can go equally fast in either left or right direction. Can't go equally fast if you're walking backwards now, can you?
Wow.
There we go.
That's very good. Although I will say, if I come across a crab that suddenly walked towards me, that'd be the next leap, because I'd find that
if you
surprising.
see a spider crab can walk towards you.
Soldier crabs as well. Soldier crabs kind of go in huge
Dara.
diagonals. And
Again, I can't, there's no statement we can make about these things.
Thousands of them coming towards you. They're little balls, and they walk straight towards you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it's probably nightmare stuff, to be honest.
I was with you, Ned, when you were saying every interaction you have with a crab, you're lucky that you've had that interaction with them. That one, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, wouldn't it be cool, though?
I think this programme has been absolutely excellent PR for crabs, I'll tell you that.
Has.
Really.
Yeah, there's a crab
Very
over there,
good.
some sort of just clicking their little things.
Crab
together.
gods are going to be very happy.
Very, very good, they say. Castanetting away. Clickety, clack, clack, clack. Very good.
Exactly.
You've been a joy, by the way, all of you.
Yeah, that's been wonderful.
Really, really interesting. It didn't go where we thought it would go. It really didn't. I think we've solved the issue of convergent evolution, but you have fanboyed and fangirled over crabs quite consistently, and in a way which is really, really enjoyable. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joe Wolfe, Matthew Wills, and Ned Sissett-Williams for helping us get to the bottom of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a newfound appreciation for crabs.
I was always faintly pro crab,
I think I'm anti-crab and before now.
but now it's turned you around.
Well,
But whereas I do know that next time I'm on a beach in a beautiful tropical island, which is semi-regularly, and we're finding hermit crabs, I'll be shouting, "You are not a crab, you are a crab of lies.
you false crab.
You are false. I abjure thee, false crab."
Let me take away your shell and see you wither. What's your abdomen doing, you weakling?
Yeah, stick it underneath you like a proper crab.
So anyone who is on their honeymoon in the next 3 to 5 years,
Shout at it.
you'll see Dara Breen on your beach.
This is in the back of your shot. Well, it's been a wonderful magic occasion. No, you're a liar or a crab. If you want to be notified as soon as a new episode is released, make sure you're subscribed to Curious Cases on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on.
Nature back. Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to Nature Bang.
I'm Becky Ripley.
I'm Emily Knight.
And in this series from BBC Radio 4, we look to the natural world to answer some of life's big questions.
Like, how can a brainless slime mould help us solve complex mapping problems?
And what can an octopus teach us about the relationship between mind and body?
It really stretches your understanding of consciousness.
With the help of evolutionary biologists,
I'm actually always very comfortable comparing us to other species.
Philosophers.
You never really know what it could be like to be another creature.
And spongeologists. Is that your job title? Are you a spongeologist?
Well, I am in certain spheres.
It's science meets storytelling.
With a philosophical twist.
It really gets to the heart of free will and what it means to be you.
So if you want to find out more about yourself,
via cockatoos that dance, frogs that freeze, and single-cell amoebas that design border policies,
subscribe to Nature Bang from BBC Radio 4, available on BBC Sounds. Bang.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
This BBC podcast is supported by ads outside the UK.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
I'm Hannah Fry.
And I'm Dara O'Brien.
And this is Curious Cases.
The show where we take your quirkiest questions,
your crunchiest conundrums,
and then we solve them.
With the power of science.
I mean, do we always solve them?
I mean, the hit rate's pretty low.
But it is with science.
It is with science. Are you smiling there, Dara?
I am. I think this is a really good topic.
A jolly topic.
It's jolly, certainly, but it's a really interesting topic, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I would hope it was something that you had a few things to say on. Because today, we've got a question in from a listener in Oregon in the USA. Here she is.
Hello, Curious Cases. My name is Taylor, and I would like to know what science might have to say about the nature of laughter. What is laughter? Why do humans laugh, and why does it feel so good? Do any other animal species have an equivalent of laughter or of humor? And I've always assumed that biologically it probably had some kind of social bonding function, but it still seems mysterious. Thank you so much.
A great question.
It is. I was enjoying you conducting there. Okay, here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
You've spent your entire professional career surrounded by people laughing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm either doing it, trying to make them do it, or watching other people try and make them do it, or attending shows in which I hopefully do it as well. And for all that, I think it's irrelevant to this. I think comedy is not what this is going to be about.
Okay, hang on a second.
Yeah, I think that what we do is just an impersonation of actual laughter.
Okay, this feels like quite a big headline newsflash. Dara O'Brien, one of the UK's most successful comedians of all time.
It's not real.
Claims he's never made anyone laugh for real.
Never got a real laugh in my life.
Okay.
And there'll be people who agree, who are like turning to their partners and going, I've always said that too. I've always said he's never got a real laugh. But I think that what we do is so mannered and strange that it's actually just trying to impersonate genuine laughter. And I think a friend of mine who's a comedy writer says that the only real laughter, the best real laughter is two siblings at the back of a funeral, you know, and that that kind of laughter, that kind of private joke, and it's uncontrollable. And I think at the end of the debate, you find that comedy is only a tiny little subset, a tiny little corner of this entire debate.
All right, challenge accepted. Okay, well, we are joined by two experts in the science of laughter. We have Professor Greg Bryant from UCLA and Professor Sophie Scott from University College London. Now, Sophie, Dara seems to think that laughter is a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of what happens in comedy, or maybe comedy is a tiny bit.
It was very much the other way around.
Look, what's your take?
Well, it's true that out in the wild, out in normal human social interactions, you very rarely are laughing at jokes and comedy. Most of the time when you laugh, you're laughing for purely social reasons. You're laughing because there's other people with you. You're 30 times more likely to laugh if there's someone else with you than if you're on your own. And the more you like those people, the more you love those people, the more laughter there's going to be. It lives in social interactions. But interestingly, within those social interactions, there are two different kinds of laugh. And sometimes like you can be laughing absolutely helplessly, and you cannot stop. And I think the last time that happened with me, I was reading out something from a newspaper to my partner, and I just thought it was so funny. I couldn't stop laughing. I was properly crying. I couldn't say what I wanted to say. And that's a genuinely involuntary vocalisation. But actually, most of the time in conversational speech, the laughter is so well timed. It's people laugh together at the ends of sentences. So actually, in conversational laughter, it's most of the time not helpless involuntary laughter. It's more kind of communicative laughter. And in fact, I think what happens in comedy isn't that people aren't laughing for real. They're laughing as they would do in a conversation. And in fact, stand-up comedy has a lot of things in common with a conversation. It has that sort of rhythm, that to and fro. It's just all other things being equal, there's only one person talking. So you are controlling and guiding that laughter. It's not fake, it's real.
Does that make you feel better, Tara?
I know. I was never putting my self-esteem on the line here. I'm just saying that I find interesting that laughter as a mechanism in that situation, because I've read a bit about how the research was done into these kind of things, which was people tried sitting people in a room and putting a DVD on of a comedy show, and when you sit on your own, you don't laugh out loud.
Nope.
Yeah, and so then they just went out in the field and essentially eavesdropped.
Yeah, exactly. There was a guy called Robert Provine, and he took the view that you should study humans the same way Jane Goodall was studying chimps. Don't put them in a lab, go out and look at them. He called it sidewalk neuroscience, and there's a lot of strength doing it. You find out a lot that way, like the fact that people mostly aren't laughing at jokes, like the fact that when someone's having a conversation, the person who laughs most of the time is actually the person who's talking. So they're using the laughter to get the people they're talking to laugh as well. So there's a real, very strong communicative element to that.
Give me an example. I want to picture it where it doesn't involve humour.
So this morning I was leaving my house to go for the world's slowest jog, and I was just ahead of my downstairs neighbour who I could hear coming out of his flat. So I held the door open for him, not realising it's 6:15 in the morning and everything's completely dark. And he jumped out of his skin. And then I said, I'm really sorry. And he started laughing and I started laughing, and we laughed. And because he's quite a big bloke, he could have also hit me. It could have gone either way. And in that sense, we were both immediately using laughter because we do know each other, and we are, we're not like best friends, but we've lived above each other, below each other for years. And we were using the laughter immediately as a way of kind of dispelling a stressful, slightly frightening moment that actually had scared him. And that's like an immediate, that's maintaining a social bond and avoiding conflict for one you already have. Or I was once on a train going all the way up to Lancaster, and the woman across from me had got 4 seats all to herself and was like spreading out. And then these 2 men got on just before the train left and sat down, one opposite her, one next to her. And she said, her words were, I'm going to have to move. I don't like the smell of coffee, because they both got coffees. But what she did was she laughed as she said it. She was like, I'm laughing at myself. Sorry, this is ridiculous. They laughed as well. And what was rude, I don't want to sit next to you because you smell, was managed completely smoothly. So they'll probably never meet again. But it's an incredibly skillful use of this. And there's nothing funny happening, but we behave as if our intentions are positive, and sort of we're on this kind of friendly, slightly playful footing, and it makes everything just go more smoothly. So when you look around, you see those sorts of things happening all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there was part of that research into was it sidewalk neuroscience. They would see when there was a burst of laughter, and then they would, because they were recording it, go back to the sentence that preceded it. And the vast majority of them were just, oh, well, or no, or something like that, or just factual statements or whatever.
I'll have a coffee, I'll miss my bus.
Yeah, it eases tension, it
helps you sort of show I understand, I recognise, I remember that same thing, I agree with you.
I have affection for you.
Exactly.
Does that mean that the comedian standing on stage doing stand-up, it's like the audience sort of communicating with the comedian that they like them.
Yes, I think I used to think that like a comedy audience, because I'm an idiot and I had never done stand-up. I thought that people were sort of sitting there going, "Oh, I like that joke, and now I'll laugh." And then I did a bit of stand-up myself, and I realised that it's really dynamic. It is being coordinated by the comedian on stage much more than I'd realised. And if you look at people having a conversation, you start to align your behaviour in a way you haven't noticed. So although we didn't agree to do this, nobody counted us in, as soon as we started having a conversation, we'll have started to breathe together, because it helps us align our voices. And that when you're having a conversation, you start to converge on the rhythm and the pitch of your voices. Again, it helps you sort of do the turn taking. And I'm really interested in, as a scientist, I want to spoil stand-up comedy for everybody, but I'd love to be able to get my hands on a comedy audience. And I have tried a couple of times. It's quite hard to get people to laugh under these conditions, but to actually look at that kind of timing, coordination between what the comedian on stage is doing to the breath and the movement of the audience, that's actually kind of cueing them in addition to everything he or she is saying, how they're also kind of cueing that now is the time to laugh, how you're leading them up to that.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of it is basically you're creating tension and releasing tension. That seems to be a lot of what happens. And the most obvious example you give really isn't from comedy, it's Wimbledon. Wimbledon, where the crowd will watch everything on the edge of their seats, and something tiny, like a ball boy drops a ball or a bird flies in, and it gets this massive laugh from the audience. That drives comedians insane, because we go, that's not funny. That's not a funny thing that just happened. But it is a tension being released. So a lot of the time what you're doing in comedy is you're artificially ratcheting up tension in order to drop them, in order to lift the audience and just drop them. And that release of tension causes a laugh, because you're just aping that social phenomena.
Are you saying you're actually a conductor for real?
I am the master puppeteer of people's emotions and energy. So we are just a contrivance in what is a far more interesting, rich, natural symphony of people laughing for 17 million different reasons.
Amazing. So fascinating. Greg, I want to bring you in here because Sophie there was talking about two different types of laughter, Greg. Are these, I guess, distinct in the way that science thinks about them?
Yeah. So as Sophie mentioned, there was the kind of laughter that's produced by an evolutionarily conserved emotional vocal system that generates crying and laughter and then screaming. And then there's the speech system, which is underlying our control of our articulators, our tongue, and allows us to make speech sounds, and also allows us to imitate almost any sound we can hear.
Greg, can I ask you about another distinction as well between real and fake laughter? The volitional laughter and spontaneous laughter, involuntary laughter, because they sound different. Are they different? We can recognize the difference in them, can't we?
Yes. I mean, for the most part, people aren't perfect at it. And so I think there's variation in people's ability to produce very real sounding volitional laughs.
I need to vouch for this. And my brother can fake a glottal whistle when he laughs in a conversation. So that glottal whistle's that kind of it's that kind of like whistling sound, isn't it? In Muttley Laugh. Yeah. Right. And it's normally generated under tremendous pressure, and that's why you get it in genuine laughs rather than sort of conversational laughs. But all I'm saying is don't trust my brother. Because he's too good. He's too good at faking it.
Well, I was going to say, actors and other psychopaths are very good at producing real laughs.
You use the word. I couldn't possibly comment.
I want to play.
I know. We have an example of this. It's quick, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's very, very quick. And there are 4 different laughs on it. And they'll veer between spontaneous and volitional. And you tell me which ones. Which one do you think is spontaneous?
Spontaneous being involuntary, and volitional is fake.
Yes. Okay, well, fake is a harsh word. Yeah, well, it's social.
Communicative. There we go. Okay,
it's a shorthand.
Go on. Okay, the last one's definitely volitional.
Okay, I definitely think we should hear it again, because obviously... So now
in experiments, we warm people up with examples so they know what to expect.
Okay,
go again. Okay, I think real, fake.
You're absolutely right.
I'd have said that.
Yeah.
You could hear the difference in pitch. You produce like such forces when you laugh in an involuntary way. You start generating really high pitches. I've got an incredibly high pitched laugh. You probably notice it when I'm in an audience.
I have a very big loud laugh, and sometimes I ask my children if they enjoy sitting beside me when I'm really enjoying a show. As a matter of it is real, fake, or let's say spontaneous, volitional. We're just going to play it again so you can hear that as an example, so you can hear it now that you know that.
The volitional one sounds so sarcastic.
It feels like somebody is just, yeah.
So, okay, how good were people at picking up on this thing, Greg?
I think in that experiment, the average was about 65% correct.
And it would be 50-50 if they were guessing at random, would they?
That's right. Right.
Greg, I'm intrigued by this notion that you can tell the strength of a relationship from the laugh.
Yeah, well, what we did is in conversations we recorded, we extracted people when they're laughing together. We call it co-laughter. And these are like little snippets that are around a second long on average, where two people are laughing on top of each other. And then we had those from conversations between friends and conversations between just newly acquainted and strangers. And then we play those for listeners, and we play them for listeners all around the world. And we found that people were much better than chance at identifying whether the people were friends or strangers when they heard those.
Well, I'd imagine if you're laughing on top of each other, then you're halfway there to having a successful relationship.
Did any of the strangers become friends?
Don't know, but I mean, strangers do it a lot less than friends, but they do it.
There's something really interesting there as well about the fact that you were picking up on the co-laughter, because it's when people share laughter, when people laugh together, that you find things like it helps them manage stressful situations. There was a paper that just came out about politicians being asked difficult questions and responding with laughter. And they found that if people's perception of them doing that was completely coloured by whether or not the person who asked the question joined in with the laughter.
Really?
So the person who's asked the question also laughs. Everyone's like, yes, that was a great answer. And if the person who asked the question is like, not getting a laugh out of me, then everyone's like, ooh, that's going very badly. So there's something very interesting about that kind of sharing.
Is it like there's no social communication between them if one of them isn't laughing at all?
There's probably at least two things that's going on. One seems to be, and this is work by Robert Levinson in the US, that is doing this longitudinal study of relationships, and he gets married couples into the lab and he makes them stressed out while he measures their physiological responses, and he stresses them by asking them a question about their relationship. Tell me about a problem in your marriage. Just run that one through your head for a second, how that feels. And what he finds is everyone gets stressed out by that, and you see that on the polygraph. But what he finds is that couples who use what he calls positive emotion, but he means laughter and smiling, get less stressed immediately, and also in the long term are more likely to stay together and are happier in their relationship. But it only works if they both laugh. So if one person's going, oh, I snort terribly, don't I? And the other person's going, it's a massive problem, you've got to stop. No one feels better. In fact, if anything, you feel worse. And so it's not that the laughter's making everything okay. It's that you're negotiating your way to the laughter. And it's not just the shared laughter, it's that you got there together. Right. Seems to be the thing that's really good about that kind of the magic of the co-laughter.
I mean, I just like the fact that we're setting a test for any couple who are listening to this now going, do we laugh the right way? Are we laughing together? Oh, no, we're not.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
And a fit of laughter, like a proper episode of involuntary laughter, you and a friend. What's going on chemically in terms of endorphins or chemicals in the brain?
Actually, endorphins, they're cheeky little things. You get an endorphin hit from laughter, but you also get it from fake laughter. Yeah, really. Robin Dunbar's shown this. You get a measurable change in pain thresholds when you've been to a comedy gig, when you've laughed helplessly, or even when you've just sort of gone ha 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 ha. It seems to be something about maybe the endorphin load of the intercostal muscles in the ribs that you're using to laugh. You also get a reduction in adrenaline, so you are immediately. In fact, I've found that if you measure people's heart rate, very sensitive to adrenaline levels, people's adrenaline levels start to drop in anticipation of something that will make them laugh, and their heartbeats start to slow. But if you're laughing, if you measure heartbeats before and after laughing, it will be slower afterwards because of the drop in adrenaline. And over a longer time scale, you also get a reduction in cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So on a longer time scale, you're more relaxed. So you feel better, you get high, you feel calmer when you've been laughing.
While we're playing clips of spontaneous and volitional laughter, I can't resist but play one of my favourite clips of all time, which is Charlotte Green presenting the Today programme in 2008. And she's trying desperately to share some very serious news, but the clip, it sort of takes her and her co-presenter by surprise. Have a listen.
American historians have discovered what they think is the earliest recording of the human voice. It was made in 1860, 17 years before Thomas Edison first demonstrated the gramophone, and featured an excerpt from a French song, Au clair de la lune. The award-winning screenwriter Abby Mann has died at the age of 80. He won an Academy Award in 1961 for Judgment at Nuremberg. Abby Mann also won several Emmys, including one in 1973 for a film which featured a police detective called the character on whom a long-running TV series was eventually based.
Oh, isn't that delightful?
It's lovely. It's absolutely lovely.
Beautiful.
And also presumably because you know you shouldn't do that. This is laughing at a funeral. I mean, there's a taboo element to this as well.
Absolutely. Well, the BBC does not like its news broadcasters or its sports broadcasters showing emotion in the voice. So it is it's a faux pas. It's unprofessional. But that's the power of the laughter. Once that set her off, and I think there was somebody who said, whispered to her, it sounds like a bee. There's somebody in the room with her. She's not on her own, and they are trying to make her laugh, and it's terrifyingly successful, and she's desperately trying not to.
There was a in the training back in RT in Ireland where I did training, there was a note left of about that corpsing, it's called, where you collapse into laughter, and it had a withering line: if you are finding it difficult to stop laughing, the mere thought that this may be the end of your career should be enough to get the laughter under control. Okay, touché. Okay, fair point.
How about you, Greg? Can you remember the last time you had uncontrollable fits of laughter?
I remember, I have a really old, good memory of being in court once with my brother, and my brother was my legal guardian, and we were sitting in court and we got the giggles and we almost got thrown out of court because we couldn't stop laughing. But we weren't trying to talk, but we were definitely not supposed to be laughing.
It's siblings.
It's siblings in a formal situation.
It really is like the kind of closest relationship that you can have in many ways, like having grown up with them, and then and perfect social communication in a tense setting. Okay, well, all right. So we've established then, we know that laughter's got all these kinds of social functions, but we've sort of touched on it a little bit with the strangers, because I want to talk about flirting as well. I don't know how many first dates you guys have been on with boring men, but the only way to make them tolerable is to find them absolutely hilarious. But if you do go on a first date and find yourself laughing a lot, turns out, good start, because here is Professor Betty LaFrance from Northern Illinois University on why laughter is such a promising signal.
We love laughing when we have met somebody for the first time. So it correlates with lots of other kinds of outcomes. I would expect that individuals who produce and experience positive humor in relationships, that they would last longer. We know that they should actually report higher levels of satisfaction, likely higher levels of commitment, likely higher levels of this feeling of interpersonal solidarity. I would expect all of those relational outcomes, actually. And even in courting behaviors, even early on, that is the glue that says we can give this a go. That this is good for right now. I feel comfortable with you, but I'm also opening up the possibility to the next stage, whatever that might be.
So there's that glue mentioned again. It does feel very intuitive. So what is going on here?
I mean, part of me thinks that it's laughter can remain very truthful. It's completely truthful with babies, and it's often truthful throughout your life, by which it means it's telling you something that you really feel. So I think one of the reasons why we laugh more in successful dates is because you like the person, and you're laughing because you like them. And that's not necessarily something that's going to be, in an objective way, completely linked to how funny they are or how funny you're being. It's telling you something. The people that you want to laugh with and the people you do not want to laugh with really are telling you something very important that you can't really argue away in terms of how you're feeling differently about those people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah,
but
if anything, it goes the other way around. It's not it's not that they're doing a funny thing and that makes you like them.
Reeling you in.
Yeah, it's you like them, and therefore what they're doing is funnier because of it. And what about, it's an emotion? It almost feels like it's a very bare emotion.
It is. Darwin thought that it was an expression of joy, and Panksepp, who's done beautiful work on laughter in rats, thought that it's an invitation to play. That seems to be where you find it across nature, and Greg's done lots of work on this. It's strongly associated with play vocalizations. I think the main thing that we could kind of fold in for humans is that it's a social joy. It's something that you experience when you're with other people. And I think that's kind of how I think about it now. It's a joyful expression, but it is so totally associated with interactions with other people, and not just anybody, with the right people in the right places, that kind of joy starts shining through.
Are there other animals that do this? I mean, this idea of laughter being very primal, very emotional, do you see it in other creatures?
Well, what we see is what we call play vocalizations. And so, we have a paper recently showing that it's been documented in at least 65 species, mostly mammals, though there's 3 species of birds that have been reported to do it. And a play vocalization is essentially a vocalization that happens immediately prior to a play bout, where the signal is designed to communicate, this is just play. So these behaviors that are coming right afterward now should not be interpreted as aggression. So play is often play fighting or prey, predator, chase simulation. And so if you come in growling and biting, you need to vocalize first or signal in some way that you're not actually threatening. So we think that function is actually highly conserved in humans as well. And even to the extent of things like I'm making a verbal joke or I'm being sarcastic or something like that, people laugh first quite often, and that can help make it sound less threatening, and you can say I'm just playing. And so I have data showing that people think things are more indirect and more ironic when there's laugh associated with it. And it has to do with the playfulness sound of the laughter.
That is interesting, though, that it's like mostly mammals. Has anyone ever seen a lizard laugh?
They don't play.
There's no lizards.
Birds are lizards, so some birds play, but non-bird lizards don't play.
Hey,
there's no evidence of laughter that's outside of a play context.
So, do we use laughter to turn situations into play?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's an absolute hallmark of arguably something like the first things that elicit laughter in babies are sort of playful things done by the parents, which can be tickling, doesn't have to be tickling. But you've got to sort of show your intentions. You don't just march up to a baby and tickle it. You kind of set it up with this is what my intention. I'm going to do something here, and the baby's like, oh, what's this going to be? So it's a very strong hallmark, and it goes all the way through. Children play or laugh all the time when they're playing,
and we tend to regard play as being a thing that children do, that people do less and less as they get older. Is the same true for laughter?
Well, it's hard to say, because one of the things that's definitely true about laughter is we have terrible insight into how often we do it. So there aren't massive numbers of studies, but every study that's looked at it has found that everybody laughs more than they think they do. So if you ask people how often they laugh, they're always wrong. They're always laughing more than that. So any study that you read that says, children laugh 1,000 times a day and adults only laugh twice, it's just wrong, because the adults will not be telling you something truthful. We've found that we've done created a questionnaire about people's experiences with laughter, and one of the big things that comes out of this is how often people think they laugh. And people really vary very, very robustly in how much they think they laugh, and that just does not predict how often people laugh. One of the other elements in the questionnaire is how much people like laughter, and that predicts how much people laugh, and that does change with age. So the older you get, you do like laughter more. So if anything,
really,
well, we haven't got data showing it, but you could easily come up with things describing things going in the opposite direction. Certainly based on our extrapolating from our questionnaire.
Because there's one of the things I remember reading about tickling is that tickling tends to happen down in age. You tickle children, nobody tickles old people, essentially.
I remember somebody at the Royal Society, when I was doing a presentation about laughter, came up and went, "I really like being tickled." I was like, "Okay, right, so we're not going there." Thank you for sharing that, but that's going to be the end of this whole conversation. But I think even actually babies don't really like it. People, there's an interesting thing where it's like, even with a baby, when you've got that kind of link set up, you just have to look like you're going to tickle them and they'll start laughing. Like, you got your laughter, you can stop now, don't go ahead with this. So
don't actually touch
don't actually do this. Yeah. So there's something very complex. Even with tickling, it's very complicated.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So comedy is a small part of this, tickling an even smaller part of it. And if anything, should be less. And as I said, it's a far richer, more complicated subject, but reassuring that ultimately it's our ability to play. That was what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's something very beautiful about that.
It's very nice. Thank you to our guests, Professor Greg Bryant and Professor Sophie Scott.
Turns out you were right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my job is really unimportant.
Well, no, you're a conductor now. You're a play conductor.
Yes, I am, and I basically move the energy of the room around the place. I mean, that's all I do.
Update your LinkedIn
and buy a baton. So I will have nightmares about that fake laugh, though. Ha 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 ha. That's in a room of people going ha ha ha.
Do you think it hits different because you're a comedian?
Oh my God, it's the worst thing in the world. Ha ha ha. Subscribe to Curious Cases on BBC Sounds and make sure you've got push notifications turned on, and we'll let you know as soon as new episodes are available.
Strong message here from BBC Radio 4.
A brand new series with me, Armando Iannucci.
And me, Helen Lewis.
A show all about the use and abuse of political language, where we take back control of the airwaves.
And tell you what we're hearing on the doorstep.
Just what do these phrases actually mean?
Can you be part of the metropolitan elite if you live in the countryside?
And what does turbocharge mean? And why do politicians need to say it every 5 minutes?
Exploring the verbal tricks of the trade.
And the effect it has on the rest of us.
Strong message here from BBC Radio 4.
Listen now on BBC Sounds.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
This BBC podcast is supported by ads outside the UK.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
I'm Hannah Fry.
And I'm Dara O'Brien.
And this is Curious Cases.
The show where we take your quirkiest questions,
your crunchiest conundrums,
and then we solve them.
With the power of science.
I mean, do we always solve them?
I mean, the hit rate's pretty low.
But it is with science.
It is with science. Do you consider yourself a particularly smelly person, Dara?
I wash? Is that what you're asking? I'm sorry, I'm with the other side of a table here. Is it that obvious?
I didn't mean to other humans.
Okay.
I meant to insects.
Oh, any specific insects?
Mosquitoes.
Right. Well, look, mosquitoes are the bane of my life. In the sense that, like, no matter how nice a holiday is and how fantastic the place is, there is a point after a certain number of days where I go, I'd like to go home now, please, because I'm just over the itching.
Dying. Absolutely
over
dying.
The itching of it all. Do you get that?
Well, I think that, like you, I smell like a delicious tiramisu.
Yeah. Steak dinner.
Steak dinner, exactly. Yeah. Wafting along to a mosquito. I have discovered over the years, this is not what this programme is about, but ways to deal with the bites. Burn them.
Oh, I go and ice them.
Shock them, do you?
Ice them, yeah.
The thing that I found,
Yeah.
and don't take my medical advice, I'm not that kind of doctor.
No.
There's a little thing that you can buy that gives them an electric shock.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
Oh.
That's what you use, is it?
That works for me.
Little zapper thing. Once on a comic relief trip, one got into my shirt overnight. And you know the thing when you wake up and there's like you can follow its path across my chest and around to my back, like whatever. I think it was 143 bites.
Good Lord.
Or something. Yeah.
There was one occasion when I was away. I just started dating somebody. This was a few years ago, and I was away and I got a mosquito bite on my cheek, right? And it, as it usually does with me, swelled up massively, like the size of a CD on my face. And then I called him and was like, oh, I can't see you because I've got quite a big mosquito bite. I really, he was like, no, don't worry. It doesn't matter what you look like. You come here. Honestly, it doesn't matter. You should definitely come. And then I found myself on his doorstep, rang the doorbell, opened the door, and he was like, you definitely should not have come.
Well, at least that's honest. Oh, no.
You really do look horrifying.
Yeah.
Should we listen to the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ilsa. I want to ask, why do I get bitten by mosquitoes and midges wherever they are, and my husband doesn't get bitten at all?
I'm not convinced that I don't actually get bitten by mosquitoes, but they seem to go for Ilsa first. That's why I always take her on holiday with me.
So as soon as we're in the vicinity of mosquitoes, I think they must know that I'm there and they just go vroom, straight towards me. I can get bitten multiple times. I get bitten on the ankles and the eyes and the legs and the arms. I wouldn't even mind donating a bit of blood, but they then leave something in me that makes me itch like crazy.
I think Ailsa is just a bit juicier. It must be something to do with her blood that attracts them, or the smell, the pheromones.
I reckon that I'm just tasty, and Keith is a little bit hairier than me, so maybe they can't get through the jungle of hair to bite him.
It is notable that these people are Scottish, and midges in Scotland are amongst the most demonic of these creatures. There was a survey of people going, would you come back to Scotland on holiday? Scotland's an incredibly beautiful country. There's lots of really amazing things. And like 48% said no, midges. Because they got bitten. You know, they go off salmon fishing or something and they have to do it in a net. Have you ever seen that? People in Scotland wearing like veils, like bridal veils, while fishing on a loch somewhere.
Beautiful.
It's a weird sight.
What I want to see is a wedding in that scenario. With an actual bridal veil.
You may kiss the bride. No, it's okay, fine. We'll wait till we're indoors. Wait till it's a wrong.
Come on under my net.
Yeah. So it's about attractiveness. Are we talking about how attractive you are?
Yeah, how much of a steak dinner are you to mosquitoes?
Well, here to help us get to the bottom of this animal attraction are Professor Leslie Vosshall from Rockefeller University in the US, studies why some of us are mosquito magnets.
And we are also joined by Professor John Pickett from Cardiff University, who is particularly interested in why some of us aren't.
Leslie, let's start with you. Firstly, how many different types of mosquitoes are there and how many actually bite?
There are 1,000 species of mosquitoes. Some of them feed on blood, some of them do not. A very small number of species specialize on people, and they are the ones who pester us. But it is a minority of mosquitoes who pester and feed on the blood of humans.
Hashtag not all mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Not all mosquitoes. Don't be mad at all mosquitoes.
Okay, I don't want to misrepresent mosquitoes because I know they're a powerful lobby in this situation.
There's some very sweet and beautiful vegan mosquitoes who do not want to kill us.
But nonetheless, you did say a sentence that included the words feed on our blood. And specifically, there is something in blood that they need.
So there's vegan mosquitoes who get everything they need from plants, but the blood-feeding mosquitoes have figured out how to get a giant protein-rich meal, mostly from humans, and they need that to make eggs.
Is it just the girls then?
It is just the girls. Then this is a female problem. So when you smack that mosquito on your arm, please use the correct gender. So she is a she, because she needs that blood to make eggs. So if female mosquitoes stop biting us today, that would be the end of malaria. It would be the end of dengue and all the arboviruses, and it would be the end of mosquitoes. So it's the need for the blood that is everything.
And what is it within our blood that's so useful for them?
Again, it's proteins. So they chew those proteins into individual amino acids and then pump that into the ovaries to be able to make eggs.
I mean, this is honestly changing my view. If this is now just like girls going through PMT, right? Gorging on ice cream.
Oh, man. They're now sympathetic to you.
Suddenly, I have at it.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
it's true. We shouldn't be mad. They're being good moms. They want to provision their offspring with the biggest meal possible. So we should not be angry with them.
And how much blood will one bite take from us?
In the lab, it's about 2 microliters, which is not an amount that your readers care about, but think about doubling their body weight. So females in the lab double their body weight. So I'm a big girl. I'm 160 pounds, so I would be twice that if I were a female mosquito.
Hey,
so it's an enormous, enormous meal.
That's a lot of ice cream.
It is. Yeah.
Yes.
But
yes.
we should not register that. They're not going to bleed us dry, mosquitoes. So it's just the reaction we have to it is the problem.
That is correct.
Okay, I would happily donate that amount of blood. Could you not just sort of leave some out in a tray overnight?
But they love everything about humans, so it's not going to be as alluring an experience to them. So they need the blood to be warm. They need to be attracted. They like the feeling of piercing skin.
Okay,
So
my sympathy's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. If we just put out buckets of blood, they don't like it nearly as much as if we put some artificial membrane. They really like that piercing feeling.
And the action of piercing, do they put anticoagulants in? What effects are they having us independent of the blood?
Just like when we eat like a steak, we use saliva as part of the process. So females inject a lot of mosquito saliva under the skin, and that has a couple of purposes. One is a local anesthetic so that we do not feel the bite until after they've left. And the second is that it does sort of tenderize things. And that's where you get the immune reaction, the itchiness and the swelling.
And also, presumably, if they've managed to invent a local anesthetic, they've also invented a very good syringe or like a very good hypodermic needle.
Yeah, and that it's one of the most beautiful structures in biology. It's like a flexible structure that can go under the skin and look for a capillary. With like sort of laser focus, find the capillary, with a bevel tip, pierce the capillary, and then the pump gets activated, and then the blood is drawn into the midgut of the animal. It's amazing.
Can I say, by the way, one of the joys about doing the show is you meet people who study insects or animals or functions of nature that the rest of us have just casually dismissed, and they describe for them as things of great beauty. They clearly are. I'm delighted I've given my life to studying these animals. They are incredible. And you're painting a picture of a very, very evolved creature.
Okay, they're terrible and they're beautiful.
Right.
They are so beautiful. It's like a 3-dimensional chess game, and they are 50,000 steps ahead of us. Everything about them is perfectly designed to get our blood.
And just to get back to the initial question I was asked, different people react in different ways to those bites.
Yeah, so we, in our early days of recruiting hundreds of people, thought we would do this smart thing and ask people, are you a mosquito magnet or are you not? And it ends up being completely useless because there's a big difference in how people react to bites. So some people react very, very strongly, and they always think that they are victims and they are mosquito magnets, but there is no correlation between how attractive you are and how strongly you react. So everybody in my lab is bitten all the time, so we're very tolerized. We can get a couple hundred bites on our arm and then an hour later forget that we have been bitten. Whereas a regular human being being bitten will have itchy bites would stay up for a week scratching.
What you're saying here then does imply that some people are more attracted to mosquitoes. So what is it? Do you know what it is that makes people more attractive?
Our most attractive person is more than 100 times more attractive to mosquitoes than our least attractive person. Why? I think is still a mystery. We did some work a few years ago to show that the more carboxylic acids that you have on your skin, the more likely you are to be a mosquito magnet. But we know that it is not the only factor.
Okay, I want you to talk me through just the process of choosing a victim. So how does it actually work? You said that these are really, really highly tuned creatures.
Humans, like all animals, give off carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide activates mosquitoes, but that is not a signal of a human. They are attracted to heat, but that is not enough to tell them that it is a human. So it is the body odor that differentiates human from non-human animals. And then also the individual odor of different people can make someone 100 times more attractive.
Hold on, though. They haven't got noses.
These are flying syringes that are out to get our blood. They are so sophisticated. They have antennae that are full of neurons, so nerve cells that are tuned to the smell of humans. Then they have these things called maxillary palps, also full of neurons that sense also carbon dioxide because they love our breath. And then the mouth parts, like the tongue equivalent, also can smell us. So it's kind of psychedelic, like if your tongue could smell. So their whole head is covered with nerve cells that are very acutely tuned to the smell of humans. And again, it's not like underarm body odor if you exercise too much, or like the smells of your anogenital regions. Really, it's just like the odor of the skin that we as humans may not even be aware of. And that stuff you can't cover with deodorant, you can't cover it with perfume. It's just this pervasive sort of general smell of human skin that, again, is not that body odor.
It's not like you can shower, wash, soap up, whatever, to become invisible to mosquitoes.
Yeah, no. I mean, when we collected scent for our study, we had people scrub their arms with hot water and soap just to have a baseline. Then they would wear nylon fabric on their arms, and there was enough in that nylon to attract a very large number of mosquitoes. So there's just something on our skin, again, that if you were to go around the studio and smell other people's arms, you wouldn't find it offensive. But the mosquitoes are incredibly sensitive to it.
Okay, not to play God here, but can you not just genetically engineer them to knock out this ability?
Oh, yes. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation invested heavily 14 years ago for scientists to do this. And so we systematically spent their money to make mutant mosquitoes that could not smell people. And so we had our great idea to knock out a gene called orco. And then we put them in a cage, and they had no problem finding people and biting them. Then we knocked out the carbon dioxide receptor, and those mutants had no problems finding a person. Then we knocked out a bunch of other genes, and they have no problems. And so, again, three-dimensional chess game, mosquitoes are 50,000 steps ahead of us. They have built in multiple layers of backup plans. I'm not giving you a message of hope here today. It is a depressing message. I just don't even know how we're going to stop them, because they're always just 50,000 steps ahead of us.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
What about what you eat and drink? I mean, this does particularly strike me as being bad on holiday, which might be because I'm in a sunny climate where mosquitoes are more prevalent, but it also might be because I drink more beer.
Yeah, so there's one really, really great paper on beer that shows very compelling evidence that the same person who drinks a pint of water versus the same person drinking a pint of beer is a much more attractive after they've consumed a pint of beer. Now, why that is? Would you have the same effect if you had a single malt whiskey? Is it the alcohol? Is it the beer? Is it the person's behavior if they've had a beer? So it's sort of unresolved. But clearly, if you want to attract mosquitoes, drink a pint of beer.
I mean, it just feels like they've increased their powers to a general ruining every part of the holiday.
Exactly, because you want to be outside drinking beer in a bikini or whatever, and so they are.
I do. That is my dream holiday. If I could be free to be out in a bikini, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, and they're with you.
Okay, well, I think we all want to rid our minds of that image. So we've actually decided to put some of these mosquito theories to the test. What we have done is a little experiment for you where last week Dara and I wore, what would you call them, pantyhose?
I'd call them little footsie socks, tiny bits of tights.
And they look so good with your bikini.
Yeah.
And then we sent them off to Professor Sarah Rees from Edinburgh University, who studies malaria in mosquitoes. Sarah, what did you do with that disgusting package?
Okay, well, it's one of the most exciting experiments we've done because the results were remarkably clear. One of you, and I don't know who, is doubly attractive to mosquitoes than the other one of you.
Whoa. Wow, okay.
So, yeah, let me talk you through what we did. So we did two kinds of experiments, and I'll start with the most exciting one first. So we took your socks and we put each of your socks over a little heat pad, and we put them on top of a cage of mosquitoes. And so the purpose of the heat pad is just to show the mosquitoes, oh, look, there's a warm-blooded human somewhere around here. We should go and hunt it down. And so because we put both of your socks on each side of the cage, they could choose whose smells they'd be more attracted to. So we put a camera in the bottom of the mosquito cage here, and there's about 20 mosquitoes in this cage. I should say we've replicated it about 6 times because, one should replicate your experiments, even though you're only a sample size of 2. if we look at person A, so can you see all these little mosquitoes? There's quite a few of them having a go at that sock.
Certainly are.
Oh my God, yeah, that is an attractive sock to a mosquito. There's loads of them around.
And they're really quite persistent. They're really trying hard to stick their proboscis into that sock and get some blood. But person B, not nearly as many mosquitoes.
Pathetic.
Nothing. No, they don't care.
Pathetic.
This is...
Absolutely, they're not persisting there. In fact, lots of them are giving up, perhaps regretting their decision to have a look at person B, and they're going off to person A.
Do you think they generally shopped around a bit? They may have, had a little sniff at person B and then go back to person A?
They absolutely made a decision to go to person A, and almost twice as many went to person A across all of our trials. So person A has attracted hundreds of mosquitoes compared to person B. So, do you know which one of you is person A?
Yes, we do. And I would like to reveal that I can add female mosquitoes to my fan base.
Really? Oh.
Yeah.
So, hang on, does this mean that I can't complain?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Well, you can complain, but only half as much as me.
Dara, this will only work for you if you are standing next to Hannah when there are mosquitoes around.
Look, I enjoy doing the show with Hannah. We haven't extended this to... Let's go on holiday together.
I've heard his holiday attire is not.
It's quite extreme. You don't want to be around me anyway. Okay, I mean, I'm sort of relieved that therefore it could be worse for me. Earlier on, we were talking about the person who's most attracted to mosquitoes could be 100 times more attractive than the person who's least. If that's a scale, do we know how far along that scale Hannah might be?
So the other thing I can tell you is when we gave the mosquitoes no choice between the two of you, so we gave mosquitoes only person A to see how attractive they were on their own compared to other mosquitoes getting person B. Actually, there's no difference between the two of you. So if you're on your own, you're equally fair game.
We made a lot of effort earlier on just to distinguish the attractiveness to mosquitoes is the same as smelling bad. But I'd like to now call that into question again. I know that you're the one that they preferred, that I'd like that to be more.
Excuse me, Leslie was talking about scrubbing the skin and the scent still being there. I'd like to really re-emphasise that bit. Are there certain smells that they like, though, Sarah?
Well, it might be that actually you both smell kind of the same. It's just that Hannah is producing more of those smells.
Oh, no!
It gets worse and worse. The hits keep coming here, don't they?
Sorry, Hannah.
Oh, God! That's awful.
What kind of smells do they like?
It's definitely tiramisu. Okay, let's move on.
Because I heard they like cheese. Do you like the smell of cheese? Is that one of the things?
Go ahead. Sarah, you dare side with Dara on this.
Okay, I'm going to try and tread very carefully here. I'm not casting any aspersions about your dietary or your washing habits here at all. At all. So, I mean, there have been a few studies that have shown that this particular kind of cheese made in Belgium, Limburger cheese, the bacteria that are used to ripen that cheese produce these carboxylic acid compounds that Leslie mentioned. And those compounds and those bacteria are pretty similar to some of the bacteria that we do naturally, I will stress the word naturally, find on our feet. So it is possible that, because we did the experiment on your foot smells, that perhaps what we're seeing is a differential vigorousness of your feet bacteria.
Okay, guys, I think this is very harsh. I have extremely good hygiene habits. I wash my socks up to 4 times a month, okay? And if anyone has anything to say about that...
Yeah. I personally, I think I prefer the implication, not that you smell of cheese, but that you smell of the bacteria used to ripen cheese.
I think the curious case here, Dara, is that in fact it's the other way round. So if you actually just look at the smell and take away the contact, all people have attractants, but some have some extra chemistry which tells the mosquito that it may not be a good target for a blood meal. And those chemicals are what we call contextual repellent. So in the context of the human attractiveness, if you've got heightened levels or the presence of these chemicals, then we get a substantially reduced attractiveness. And certainly there are people that they are completely unattractive to mosquitoes. Scottish biting midge will even fly by them to get to somebody who is attractive.
So this isn't that I stink, it's that Dara's unattractive.
Yes. hang on. I mean, this is flipping so fast at this stage. People need the clarity on this. I know there's a lot of discussion about the science of mosquitoes here, but we really want to work out who smells more. And we're weighing off Hannah smells attractively versus I smell unattractively, and which is a better or worse skill to have.
Well, it depends whether we can use the chemicals that are causing that unattractiveness. That's the problem. And it's two compounds made by our skin that we call terpenoids. And when they are oxidized, which can happen during stress, these compounds are formed and can indicate stress. And we think it's that the mosquito is averse to. But really, some of the people that have got high levels of these compounds spell, I'm sure, just like Dara does, absolutely normally.
Absolutely wonderful, I think you want to say. It's not just normal, but generally warm, a musky sense of home.
And I smell like relaxed, chill. I'm just a cool Zen girl.
Cool.
That's what it is.
That's right. So I possibly excrete terpenoids, and when I'm stressed, say, for example, if you've been asked to wear weird socks that are being sent to a lab, and that kind of freaks me out a little bit, that I excrete more of these, but these things actively repel mosquitoes.
Yeah, so some people have got an inherent level which is higher than others of them, and those are the people who luckily aren't attractive.
These compounds, though, can you not just manufacture them, slather them on your skin?
Oh yes, that's how we find out that they do this.
Then, okay, why can't I just go and buy this stuff then?
Well, that's a pity, isn't it, that we can't do that at the moment, but we haven't managed to actually get the idea that this could be an alternative to the kind of repellents that we use and that I use when I go to Africa to work on malaria mosquitoes.
I mean, look, mosquito bites are annoying and itchy, but we should say that the real problem here is that some of those mosquitoes can spread very nasty diseases, and they are the biggest killer in the animal world.
Absolutely. And the thing is, from my perspective, we don't need to worry so much about the mosquitoes, but it's the things that are inside them, those viruses and those parasites that they're transmitting from person to person. And so that's actually what we want to target. I mean, a few 100 million cases of malaria exist every year. It kills children under 5. Up to 40% of the world's population do live in areas where there are malaria mosquitoes present.
Is there anything within the parasite itself, that makes it so good at spreading this disease?
Well, the parasites also want the lipids, the fats and the proteins, so all the goodness that's in that blood, just like the mosquitoes do. And the parasites are competing with the mosquitoes for that food stuff, because the malaria parasites do a lot of bizarrely complicated development and replication when they're living inside a mosquito. It actually takes a malaria parasite 2 weeks to get from entering in a mosquito to being ready to exit that mosquito and enter a new person. And that, is beyond the lifespan of the vast majority of mosquitoes in the wild. So it's kind of crazy in a way that malaria is such a problem.
How does it work then, if that sort of feels like a conundrum?
If you're a parasite and you need to spend 2 weeks living inside a mosquito that is unlikely to make it for that length of time, your best interests is in keeping your mosquito safe. So you don't want to cause it to get too ill. You don't want to cause it to do too many risk-taking behaviours like getting more blood, where they're quite likely to get swatted and squashed and killed. So there has been some ideas that, maybe malaria parasites actually make their mosquitoes live a very quiet life for those 2 weeks, only feeding on sugar until they're ready to be transmitted back to a person. And then they make their mosquito very hungry and very keen for blood. But again, jury's really out as to whether this could be a real phenomena. I mean, mosquitoes don't appreciate having malaria. It doesn't make them very sick, but it's not great either. So they maybe live a quiet life simply because they're a little bit ill.
Mosquitoes tend to bite at night, right? So can you just, if you really want to try and avoid them, just be extremely careful at nighttime and then be more free during the day?
That's what you would hope for, isn't it? So we've been using bed nets for decades, which stop mosquitoes biting people when they're sleeping during the nighttime. Those bed nets are often treated with insecticide chemicals. So not only do they stop the mosquito from getting any blood, but they also poison the mosquito to death. But this is clearly a massive problem if you're a mosquito. So what's the solution? Evolution generally finds a way, and the solution mosquitoes have found, which relates to the multiple layers of backup plans that Leslie mentioned, is to bite people earlier in the evening and later in the morning when they're not protected by bed nets. There's even some suggestions that some mosquitoes are camping out outside schools and biting children when they arrive to start their school day, which is pretty terrifying.
It is absolutely terrifying. And thank you, Sarah, for raising this point that the mosquitoes say, like, haha, you're all like sleeping under these nets where we can't get at you. And so slowly the population moves toward day biting. Is terrifying because they realize we are not going to walk around wearing bed nets as we go about our day.
Leslie, that idea of hanging around outside schools to get children as they leave during the daytime, I mean, that sounds pretty aggressive. Does their behaviour change if they have dengue or malaria?
They are super aggressive biters. I think that the evidence for dengue is a little bit more convincing on both sides, that dengue-infected mosquitoes may be more aggressive, more restless, take more bites. And there was one paper that says that humans smell different when they're infected with dengue and are more attractive. But there's only a very small number of papers, and so more work is needed to really figure out which side is correct.
The day biting behaviour is what we call behavioural plasticity. So they're hungry because they're not getting blood when they want it. And so they're just changing their behaviour to try out something new that will happen to be successful. But one of the kind of the knock-on consequences of that is, well, what does that mean for malaria transmission? Which brings it back to what do we really care about dealing with here? And it's the disease transmission. So we don't really know what ending up in a mosquito at a weird time of day means for either party. You know, we feel rubbish if we eat a massive meal just before we go to bed or immediately if we wake up. The same is going to be true for mosquitoes as well. Taking a huge blood meal, which is kind of like drinking a bath of soup if you're a human, and doing that at a strange time of day when our circadian clocks aren't expecting it, isn't going to be so good for our health. Better than starving, but not great. Same is probably true for the parasites, except we've shown that mosquitoes are more susceptible to getting malaria infection when they take blood meals in the daytime than the nighttime.
I'll be honest with you, listening to all three of you, it sounds like you are battling these mortal enemies that you despise and adore in equal measure. Maybe deeply respect.
Yeah, that might be a way of putting it. Yeah, I mean...
If we are going to respect...
It's fair to say that these creatures have been ridiculously underestimated by both science and by medicine. They're far more sophisticated than we've given them credit for. And evolution always will find a way. The best we can do is to win some of the battles in this long war. So we need to both be dealing with the parasites, but as well trying to deal with mosquitoes locally where we can too will be a good idea.
Well, look, the best of luck with that battle. I can see why Hannah would be the high-value target in this ongoing war. But thank you all for your efforts, and thank you for coming here and talking to us today. Professor Leslie Voshall, Professor John Piggott, and Professor Sarah Rees. Who smells more, and for what reason? That was left tantalisingly vague.
Wasn't it just?
Yeah.
And luckily, this being radio, no one will be able to tell the truth.
I think they'll guess. They'll definitely guess. Subscribe to Curious Cases on BBC Sounds and make sure you've got push notifications turned on, and we'll let you know as soon as new episodes are available. You can manage your subscriptions from the My Sounds tab.
Nature Bang. Hello. Hello. And welcome to Nature Bang. I'm Becky Ripley.
I'm Emily Knight.
And in this series from BBC Radio 4, we look to the natural world to answer some of life's big questions.
Like, how can a brainless slime mould help us solve complex mapping problems?
And what can an octopus teach us about the relationship between mind and body?
It really stretches your understanding of consciousness.
With the help of evolutionary biologists,
I'm actually always very comfortable comparing us to other species.
Philosophers.
You never really know what it could be like to be another creature.
And spongeologists. Is that your job title? Are you a spongeologist?
Well, I am in certain spheres.
It's science meets storytelling.
With a philosophical twist.
It really gets to the heart of free will and what it means to be you.
So if you want to find out more about yourself,
via cockatoos that dance, frogs that freeze, and single-cell amoebas that design border policies,
subscribe to Nature Bang from BBC Radio 4, available on BBC Sounds. Bang.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.